For those of you who are not familiar with Client Success, or you're just getting familiar with Client Success, we are a customer success management platform and more. Historically, we have been a solo platform, really helping customers, what we said, manage from new to renew, so that entire post-initial sales life cycle. But we are so much more than that. Over the past several months, if you've been following our journey, we've had a series of acquisitions, including one of my personal favorites, Baton. If you're not familiar with Baton, it is an onboarding solution, but so much more. I do encourage you, if you are somebody who leads onboarding, whether it's in your customer success function, you're part of an implementation team, take a peek at it. You will not be disappointed. We have been moving folks over to our solution for the past several months now, and the feedback is fantastic. So if you're interested in learning more about Baton, you can go ahead and scan that QR code. It will bring you to some more information and get a demo scheduled. So if you are interested, I definitely recommend you go check it out. Now, one more thing, because I would be remiss if I did not talk about this, but if you are not familiar with our CS100 Summit, now this event is a community event, okay? This is not a client success customer event. So you do not need to be a client success customer to take advantage of this event. Now, it is called CS100. If you are not familiar, it is limited to 100. Okay, that is why it is called CS100. It is intended and designed intentionally to be a very interactive, immersive experience where you are building real relationships and learning amongst your peers. Now, the best way I can describe this, it's like customer success camp. If you have never been to the mountains at the Sundance Resort in Utah, I promise you these pictures do not even do it justice. It is fantastic. So now you take all the beauty that is the mountains in Utah and you couple that with some of the best and brightest minds in customer success, and you get an amazing experience. So if you're not doing anything, September 22nd, 23rd, 24th, that is also my birthday, the 23rd, come celebrate my birthday with me on the mountains in Utah with 100 of my closest customer success leadership friends, and let's have a fantastic time. So this is a little bit about it. Scan the QR code. It'll bring you to our website to check it out, learn more. I will tell you, we do cap it. So if you are a CS leader and you do intend to join us, just know as soon as tickets are sold out, they are sold out. There is not extra room. So this is going to be capped. We already have a bunch of people who have registered. Go check out the speaker lineup, go see who's there. And then obviously if you're intending to go, we are still out. I think yesterday may have ended early bird special, but I don't know if it's changed on the website. So you might actually have an opportunity to take advantage of one more day of the early bird special, but go ahead and get your tickets booked. Would love to have you all come. Now, without further ado, we are here to talk with Dana Alvarenga about onboarding and how it never ends. And she's going to talk about how she uses her onboarding frameworks throughout the entire customer journey. So Dana, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. So happy to be here. Let me get my screen here for us.
Okay.
So
Dana,
thank
I'm
you.
going
And
to leave you to it. I'm going to go off screen. I'll be in the chat for those who have questions. I will be back at the end for our Q&A.
Sounds good. Thank you,
All right.
Kristi. And I saw my face on that blackjack table, or I think it was, or whatever table I was
I think it
playing,
was roulette.
Yeah, roulette. Yeah, I saw my face at the end. I think I was there all night. So yes, so awesome. So thank you for having me. Thanks for joining, everyone. Today, as Kristi mentioned, we're going to be talking about how I approach onboarding, as onboarding never ends, keeping Workstreams alive across the customer journey, and a little bit about myself. Is I put into the chat, I'm from Boston, 18 plus years experience in the technology industry within sales, sales training, management, customer education, customer success, customer advocacy. And here at SlapFive, I am the Vice President of Customer Experience. And SlapFive, we're a marketing software platform that helps customer marketers mobilize their customers to drive customer-led growth at scale. We have a customer reference portal, customer advocacy. We integrate with communities. And I lead the customer success function along with education, advocacy, and just really manage the overall experience of our clients. And in my role covering all things customer, that also includes our community, the Customer X community. It's not a SlapFive community, it's a greater community. Customer X being the X factor of customer marketing, customer reference, customer advocacy, customer experience. So I wear a lot of hats, to say the least. And with all that being said, I'm obviously customer obsessed and love to travel. Mom of a 7-year-old, almost 8-year-old girl, and just love all things reality TV and Bravo, junk TV, as Kristi and I were just chatting about. So happy to connect on all things customer obsession or any of my personal loves of reality TV or Bravo. Hit me up after this. So dig right in. So talking about onboarding, and this has been a big evolution within my kind of career journey and the growth journey of SlapFive. Is we've really kind of looked at that myth of go live means that you're done. And we were defining it, we as a company were defining, oh, the customer's live, but the customer defines it as something different. So really having that traditional view of onboarding ends at go live should be out the window. I mean, onboarding has been treated like a project with a clear finish line, right? Like usually go live, but go live to who? You, the client, or the customer? And the customer gets trained, the product gets launched, the box gets checked, and then we move on. And in reality, your customers are just getting started at that stage. So that's just the beginning. Customers are barely scratching the surface of the value your product can deliver. Their teams are still learning, their processes are evolving, and the real world use cases are just really beginning for them. So there's a risk because you're missing deeper value opportunities, because if you treat go live as really the end of their onboarding, you could miss the opportunity to guide customers through to the next steps for deeper adoption, feature expansion. So that's where kind of flipping the script a bit of how we at SlapFive are treating onboarding is whether a customer is adding a new product, they're expanding to another team, or they're onboarding new users, we treat each of these moments like a fresh opportunity to guide them through the right path, because success in one area doesn't automatically transfer to another just because they did your implementation and started their instance and branded their instance. If you have branding with your product, that doesn't necessarily mean that onboarding for another module or another feature will go smoothly. So you really need to have a reset and a start over each time. So we guide customers through a structured 5-phase framework, so they'll always know where they are in their journey. It definitely helps create clarity, consistency, and it allows flexibility too. And we stay tightly connected with our customer teams that we're implementing and onboarding, and have a lot of deep dive workshops. We're very workshop heavy during these implementations and onboarding. And the way that we've broken it up and how we continue to kind of evolve and treat this onboarding is we've broken up onboarding into various work streams. So as I mentioned, SlapFive being a customer-led customer marketing platform, we can do a lot. And we were running into, which I'm sure many people on this call can relate to, sales would sell the product and sell all of the various bells and whistles and features and modules. And then CS is expected to make all of that go live and go live in a timely manner. And that becomes unrealistic when you have such a large scope of what your product can do. So we peeled it back and said, we need to have kind of clear lanes, guide the customer to what work stream is most important to them out of the gate. Does not mean they do not have full access to all of these features, work streams, capability, functionality within the product, but we need to break down the work streams into different areas. And you could do this with different use cases that your product supports, different modules. So you look at it in the lens that these are the key areas that your product supports. And we look to onboard every feature and function in this way, because onboarding every feature and function and capability is very unrealistic right out of the gates. And that's where you'll get into the vicious cycle of the onboarding is never ending in a bad way. we're trying to make the onboarding never ending in a positive way, because there are opportunities along the customer journey to continue to engage and onboard the customers. So your work streams are mapped and labeled as well in this area. So we've leveraged Baton to have different work stream templates, and the customers right after purchase during a kickoff call will determine what is the most valuable work stream for them to meet their immediate goals. Do they have a timeline they're working towards to launch a new reference program, which we support? Are they looking to have a referral program? All of that. So we have broken down various templates that support these work streams and pick the first one. And then from there, to leverage kind of how this all connects into the client and customer ecosystem, I'll dive into this in a little bit later too, but we've also created custom fields in ClientSuccess. So in your customer success platform, you're able to have that custom field working towards. And looks like my audio went out. Hang on.
But you're back. You're back.
You still able to hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us? Can you hear me, Dana? It looks like you're on mute. Can you hear?
My lovely headset did the sync again. Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
All right, back on track. Sorry about that. My headset has a mind of its own as of late. There. Okay. So where was I? Okay. So sorry about that. So within the within Baton, within these various different work streams, so there's phases in each one of these work streams that we've identified. So customers have a clear understanding and a clear path of what work streams and what goals that they have to achieve during each of these work streams. So your onboarding and your implementation experience with SlapFive and leveraging Baton, you're able to have that project management success planning, the clear go live and milestones, and a strategy roadmap and timeline that they're able to focus and achieve. So this is just an example of what we share during kickoff to let them know, here, this is the, in this image, this is the work stream you've identified. Here are going to be the milestones you need to get there to achieve. When we look to target all of these work streams in that 30 to 45 day window. So it's great to get some early wins and successes. It's not something that's going to take a very long time. Understand in every industry that's not realistic, but again, could be another point to why you should break it down by different work streams or use cases. So you could have projects that are 30 to 45 days and show progress, especially if you're in a industry where implementation tends to take a long time. Find ways of how you could peel that back and have individual templates and plans to launch, because this gives a lot better expectations and happiness to the customers when they can say, you've achieved this first milestone, this first work stream. With these template driven work streams, so finding a process, find a repeatable process, and you're ensuring that there's tasks for both internal and external teams. So this doesn't always need to be just for external, just for your customers to check off. This can be internal tasks if you need people to do configurations on your side. And one of the most important things that we've learned with a successful onboarding, and in this model, the ongoing onboarding, it definitely relies on this repeatable, structured process. So it's familiar, especially you're activating their second work stream. You don't have to re-educate them on what they need to do with Baton or what they need to achieve. You have that repeatable process. It's just different tasks and different items that they need to follow. So we've actually built, I leverage 7 templates to support these processes today. Really helps make it be scalable. Each one is tailored for the different work stream and the different phases that are included in there. And as I mentioned previously, the average is 25 days. I've since changed that scope a bit. It's probably closer to 35 days. And what we're able to see and leverage within Baton, which is fun to see, and a good exercise I was able to do with this is our most used template. And that happens to be our customer reference work stream, which for us is interesting and valuable, as that is a big module and a very popular feature that is sold. So it does tie back to we are aligning to what sales is selling, what customers are expecting, and what we're delivering. So it is a good thing to review and look at if you break down your templates in Baton based on modules or products, that you do look at this and see what is the template you're using the most, and make sure it does align with that pre-sales motion of what's being sold. So kind of flipping the script a bit here from leveraging templates, having the work streams, we've also put into place a big push, and this does come into play and does help get managed within Baton, but having the overall different mind shift change to mutual expectations, and having that onboarding never ends mentality means having these mutual expectations and having a clear line of who from your team leads implementation, who leads the client and the customer from a customer success perspective, who is their executive sponsor on their side, who needs to sign off that it's launched or it's go live. Understanding all of this and leaning in and letting the customers know what their responsibilities are during onboarding and implementation. It's not just on you, the customer delivering the product or the services. They need to have some skin in the game and some mutual expectations and part that they own. So having a weekly pulse check with open-ended questions of how are things going, what more do you need from us, and letting the customers know right up front in the kickoff call, like, we will ask you these questions, we need you to tell us. So you don't get to day 30, you're closing out a Baton project plan, you're onboarding, you're checking it off, and then they come back and say, well, actually, we need X, Y, and Z. If you're staying on top of it during these weekly pulses and making sure you're identifying if there's anything that's stuck in the project plan, which I love. I just went through and did like 5 stuck update statuses in Baton for my projects, and calling out if it's the customer that you're in this stuck motion for. If it's calling out and documenting this, but not just keeping it to yourself and your own internal systems. You want to make sure that you're communicating this and also asking for communication back. So it's an open line of communication between the two of you and your customer. So with the mutual expectations, with this, why we looked at and why we believed onboarding should evolve is because our customers are continuously activating these new work streams. And a big reason why we look at onboarding never ends. This helps, we hope, I mean, we're only 2 quarters in, but hoping that this is tying to stickier customers. They're implementing more features. We're not just going live with one thing and moving on and managing them as status quo. It's expected now that you onboard, and then the next quarter we're going to another work stream or another workflow or automation or project to activate. So we're very high touch in that model, and it allows for expansion, allows that we're making sure we're aligned to the customer goals. So really setting the stage by having these new work streams, having an implementation timeline, letting them know like how it's being separated and what work streams will fall into what buckets, helps with that mutual expectations up front, and getting sign off on this. Having them agree that, yes, we agree to this timeline, we agree to these work streams, and if any changes to the scope happen, documenting that as well. So with that, at the end of each work stream, so the end of each kind of project and onboard, we're kind of looking to take away the traditional executive business review or quarterly business review. And since we're looking to activate a new work stream every quarter and make kind of onboarding, as I mentioned, onboarding never end, onboarding never dying, each quarter is a review of that first work stream, that first activation, that first go live. and flipping the script by having the customer present. This again is not necessarily just unique to me, but it helps when you have a product that has a customer facing portal or something that your customers are logging into, more in the SaaS space. And what we do is have the customer showcase what they are now doing. Now that we've implemented this work stream, now how are you using it? How are you leveraging it? They share their screen. They go through the workflow. They go through any implementation or technical integrations that are part of this work stream. And that uncovers any holes or any gaps that may have been missed on both parts. And you can squash them right then and there versus come renewal time and they've been stewing on one email notification, maybe wasn't set up or wasn't sending to the right person, whatever it may be within your product. You can think through some clear examples, I'm sure. This, you can change the process, update it, and ensure that the program and the customer is ready for the next work stream. So you don't really close the door on the implementation or the onboarding till the customer has shown you how they're going to leverage this module, this product, this use case, this feature, and then you move on. And another layer to this is having that, back to this timeline slide here. So having this timeline, this is the output of what we are putting into place as a strategy roadmap. And this gets talked a lot about, I think, in the customer success space of success planning. They all have different words and phrases. We're taglining it a strategy roadmap. And that is what really maps out and takes and translates what was sold in the sales process, what was identified as their pain points, what did they want to do, and packages it up for us in the customer success org to really have the steps, the outline, understanding what are the immediate, midterm, long-term goals. And that's how we bucket in the various different work streams. We at SlapFive are leveraging ClientSuccess to use that main timeline and those goals, tracking as goals within ClientSuccess. And then Baton is activating the work stream. So each one of these buckets, back here to this slide here, so each one of these buckets, like step 1, that is a work stream. June, step 2, that is a work stream. Step 3 is a work stream. So each one of these are different templates and projects in Baton. With this main whole big picture, our goals we're making sure we're capturing in ClientSuccess and our customer success platform to ensure we're reaching these goals as a customer. So with this, the roadmap details out all the future work streams, identifies what needs to happen first. And it's just a nice tangible document and artifact for the customer to have during this new motion of onboarding never ends. And it helps level expectations that when I kind of open up with a kickoff call saying, onboarding's never going to end with us. We're always going to be kind of implementing and activating new work streams with them. That could be a scary phrase that could be to hear coming out of the gate. So this kind of eases that in level sets and puts everyone on the same page. The other huge piece here that I'll recommend and lean on heavily is leveraging forms. If it's through Baton, if it's through a third-party forms that you're using, but we are using forms for an agreement after that strategy roadmap. That's their timeline. You agree, here's the date, that you acknowledge it, any questions or comments. And this is separate than their kind of individual work stream. I'll talk about that in a moment. But this is their main kind of customer journey timeline and all of those different work streams that fall in between it, where we're going to activate new projects, new onboarding is a part of it. So we want them to sign off that they agree to that. And that's our agreement that we will work towards that timeline with them and document any changes or hiccups that happen along the way on either part to ensure that we stay on track. So using a form, because email or customer's word isn't always going to suffice. So having it documented is huge. I've alluded to this through kind of my first 10 slides here or so, but the tech that I'm using to empower and leverage and use this keeping onboarding alive is Baton, and how we have structured it as a team and as a company is Baton is tracking all the internal and external projects and timelines. It has all of the tasks, internal and external tasks, and it's technical and non-technical. So it's not just the technical setup. Some of it is customers just understanding what defining, I mean, in the advocacy and customer success and customer reference space, they need to, for an example, they need to define what's in it for them, for their customers, if they're creating a customer program that they're using SlapFive to leverage. So that's a step. So it can be some more kind of lighter, fluffier type steps, I'll say, but for the most part, it is an action that they need to do or complete. And then same on the SlapFive side, an action we need to do or complete, and they all tie together and are dependent on one another. They're not one-offs. So it does flow together in what they need to do. And the allotted time that it takes for them to do has been a big help as well, to add that in as well. So leveraging the trigger points for at-risk customers with this process, this has been a big help and a big turn, because if you go back to the beginning of what I was mentioning of just start with onboarding and implementation and you do it all in one fell swoop, things will fall through the cracks, or it takes a very, very long time. The scope gets changed. If you break it up into these various work streams and buckets, it does help really manage expectations better on both parts. It helps you identify if customers abandon the project plan very early, and you're able to mark it at risk in Baton and in ClientSuccess, which has been super helpful on our front to be able to identify that early. If there's tasks that are stuck with the customer, you cannot move forward without this certain task. It allows you to engage with the executive sponsor that's been identified on the account. You could send a report right from Baton that allows you to do that, which I have seen kind of very helpful in this onboarding never ends, activating these work streams method, and overdue tasks. That was my kind of work this morning of going through and finding which customers had overdue tasks, detailing out which they needed to do. It's an easy kind of one snapshot. That was my admin hour this morning of going in and making sure I had all of that identified. And this will definitely help as treating risk signals as prompts, not problems. So you could be proactive, not reactive here. So it's opportunities to re-engage, not just reasons to escalate. And if you notice that tasks that you have assigned to customers aren't moving, or worse, that are just being ignored, you can really just reach out to them and understand. I mean, maybe they're overwhelmed, maybe they're unclear of their responsibilities, maybe they're deprioritizing the project. You can really see these things quickly versus I was previously doing all of this in a spreadsheet and would have no insight, just that they weren't completing their tasks. But I didn't know how far outdated it was, had no real way to kind of share with executives how overdue things were. So this is something that's really helped to be able to track and help us internally, why we shifted actually our structure of our customer success Oregon team within the last like 2 weeks, fairly fresh, of having one person focus on all of these work streams, the integrations, the onboarding never ends each quarter, and then having a dedicated customer success manager to manage the ongoing success and renewal. But that's how important we see these projects and ongoing onboards to us, as they will continue to be important, and why we focus on one person solely responsible for that right now, so we can notify the customer early, reconfirm all of that, flag these at risks. Really went long-winded on that slide, so sorry, but it's super important. And a little bit more of triggering for risk or re-onboarding is knowing when to activate new work streams or to start a new implementation. Was there turnover within the organization? Do you have a new champion? Are there new team members? Has the team expanded that you support? Do they have new goals? Is there low engagement from them as a customer in general? You can leverage activating new work streams, obviously have a conversation with them first, but offer new features, guide the customer to the water in a sense of this is what we would recommend you do next. Especially if you finished out that year timeline of here you're doing the first year. After that, after the first year timeline, when you've pinpointed out their certain goals, it does start to thin out of what are the opportunities and what are the work streams to activate. So you have to be creative and make sure you've documented what are the work streams, one, that they've done and they've activated, what are ones that don't fit in their business use case, and then what are ones that are rooms for opportunity, and be able to have that all documented in your customer success platform will help you know when to have that kind of new re-onboarding, new activations stage. So the easy one here is after that quarterly backstage pass that we're doing, that's where we're following along and finding it's easy for the first year because we have that strategy roadmap timeline, but that will be even more relevant and important each quarter to listen to what the customer's goals are, find opportunities of what other automations or workflows, features that you can introduce, and then activate that work stream based on it. So the executive business review always is looking for upsells, cross sells in the CS motion. So it is doing that still, but it's then treating it as that new work stream, that new activation, and new onboard. Oops. And some best practices here. So this is semi-fresh. I started this evolution in January. It's evolved probably 2 times in the last 2 quarters, and in probably the best state today, as of like August 1st was my like date of here is the MVP model of this implementation and onboarding strategy here at SlapFive. Definitely having checkpoints at the lifecycle milestones, not just quarterly. So this helps to make sure you're not waiting for something to break before you're re-engaging. So built-in checkpoints at the right times outside of renewals, but that this will open up opportunity for expansions. If there is something big happening within their company, strategic initiatives, goals, a lot of companies are acquiring products. So this is where tying the relationship really closely to the ongoing customer success manager to listen for opportunities. And when we hear something that would be beneficial to the customer of an automation or a workflow or a new feature, then it's an introduction over back to me, which they probably already met me, to activate this new work stream. And this makes it, we have the templates, we're not building anything from scratch. We have kind of all of like our back end kind of book to leverage and showcase and identify with customers. Some of these are included in the product and some are upsells and cross-sell opportunities. So this does, after kind of that first year or first couple quarters, based on what the customer bought right out of the gate in their sales cycle, a lot of these work streams and different activations do tie into upsells. So it does come into the upsell and cross-sell motion, which I know is a big turning point in the CS industry. And we at SlapFive are now moving into that evolution of having CS own upsells. We are building out what are those upsells, what is that price book, and where do they come into play in the customer life cycle. So that's one thing I definitely would recommend, because that has made huge opportunity, because that gives us, again, more stickiness, more opportunity for engagement with the customers, and having a re-engagement of a project plan only builds more alignment with the customer. Having reusable content, already mentioned that. Training your CS team to spot these re-onboarding moments. So re-onboarding moments could be translated in your industry or your world to cross-sell, to upsells. because having those specific signals, for us, it's very big on integrations. So if we hear they use a certain community, they have a certain customer success platform, a certain project management tool, whatever they may be using in other teams that are communicating with them, we want to integrate with any and all products within our MarTech stack of our customers. So listening for those. And tracking onboarding, this is a huge one. Tracking onboarding as a KPI, not a phase. So we don't see onboarding as a box to check. As I mentioned, it's a metric. We're actively measuring. We review it on executive stand-up calls, how long it takes, how complete it is, where there's roadblocks, where there's red flags, where there's customers at risk during their implementation and onboard. So this really shifts onboarding to a performance lever, not just a project. That's just part of the SaaS world that you have to do when you buy a new product. And like big feature shout out here, leaning in on Baton. Like this has been a huge thing. You don't need Baton for this, but it helps it very nicely. But leveraging forms for acceptance of Workstreams implementation completions has been a game changer. Using forms to formally capture that sign off on those completed Workstreams. It ends up not being just for documentation. It really creates that clarity, sets expectations, keeps everyone aligned. So that has been a huge, maybe people are doing this and I'm just late to the game, but that has been a huge game changer on our front of signing off on your timeline of your strategy. And then when implementation is done, you're signing off. Little example of what we use, the forms leveraged in the implementation. So when you have a work stream complete, they put their date, who they are, and any comments. And then this leads into that backstage pass executive business review, where once they've signed off on this, they are ready to then showcase me back. Okay, you've signed off on this work stream, you're implemented, you're live, now show me. And it helps, as I mentioned, uncover those holes and any gaps, if there are any. Some future best practices that I'll call out will be, we today as a CS org within our company have customer health calls, which I'm sure a lot of you on the call have. We are going to be doing weekly implementation health calls and separate it because it is a separate work stream. It is a separate function. So ensuring that we're checking any ones that are at risk for health, why, what are the blockers, and identifying those early and discussing those as a team within our internal executive stand-ups. And then building some of our own integrations on our end. This is something that we're doing that I would tally as one of our future best practices from a SlapFive perspective, but just having more integrations and workflows between the systems. I leverage forms a lot, so having that kind of flow into my ClientSuccess portal. That's something that we're working on our side, on the SlapFive side, of some more automations between our MarTech system. So since I made this slide, this is up. I was in there this morning. I have 30 projects now, so that's exciting, 35. But this, just peeling back behind the window here, since January when we went live with Baton, we're at a 62-day average workstream activation, which includes kind of that sign-off approval, any lags, I mean, which it was lower earlier in Q1, but since we've shifted this model to add a couple more of the acceptance forms, adding in the strategy roadmap timeline, that's all new as of Q2. So that has shifted our timeline a bit here of the average work stream. And it's just a great visual to be able to look up and see like how many are completed, how many are paused. I look at my dashboard in Baton pretty much daily to check on the status of everything. So this, and you can tie it all to revenue. These are just a couple of the icons on my dashboard that are not any company data to share. But yeah, really, I look at it as treating onboarding like a motion, not a milestone. Every journey is a phase. It's an activation opportunity. So always on onboarding, always on value. Fun little quote there. And that is all that I had. I'll hand it over. I did 45 minutes, thought I'd be 40. So pretty good.
Very good. Well, plenty of time for Q&A. So Dana, you can stop sharing
Hand it
your
over for any
screen.
questions.
Oh, yep. Very good. And we're going to pull it over to questions. We've got 2 so far. And just a reminder to everybody who's still with us, thank you so much for sticking around. We're going to do some Q&A. So if you've got any questions
Oh,
that you
hold
want
on,
answered,
Kristi, I'm not
please.
hearing you.
Is
Sorry.
everyone else hearing me? No?
Yeah, now I can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay.
It
All
was
right,
me.
very good. Okay, great. Thank you all in the chat for confirming. Very good. Okay, well, we've got 2 questions so far, but if we've got any more questions, guys, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. We'll get to as many as we can. All right, Dina, first question up. What has surprised you the most since you implemented this new model for onboarding and re-onboarding?
I think what surprised me the most is, in a good way, how streamlined and successful we can be. I mean, clearly I had to shift and do this because we were not being successful. Some onboarding implementations were going very, very long. It seemed like there was no end in sight. So that's been the biggest thing. And the biggest shift was the first day a customer emailed me and said, I'm sorry, our Salesforce team can't meet until this date and their sprint is this for that. Like, is that going to be okay with our implementation plan? Like, they were coming back to me and being like, what does this mean? And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, usually we were getting the finger point of like, we're waiting on you, we're waiting on you, waiting on you. And it was like 3 in like a month that customers were coming to me being like, is this okay that we can't do this step till this date? So it really flipped the script and put the onus on them and gave them skin in the game, and it showed. So that was the biggest surprise, and it was awesome when it happened because I was like, yay, they're asking validation that it's okay that we can't do something for 2 weeks. Like, yes, we'll adjust and do something else during that 2-week period.
Very good. All right, next question. Do you segment your customers? And if so, how? And how do the onboarding workflows change based on customer segment?
So we do not segment our customers yet. That is probably the stage we'll be headed to in like 2026 now that we've flushed out and as of 8/1 really reorged how our CS team and customer team is functioning and working, because we will need to be able to scale. So short answer, no, but long answer, yes, we will be. And that will be different templates. I will have a template for an enterprise customer, a template for strategic customer, because there'll be different key stakeholders involved, and sometimes longer. What we'll learn over the next 2 quarters is we'll learn, are these enterprise customers taking longer? I have the stats to be able to show that with some of our project plans. So
Okay, very good. Next question is, most customer journeys start with an onboarding stage. If you're always onboarding, which I love, how is it reflected in your journey stages?
So that's a great question. I see, Allie. So with that, um, it's reflected where in the customer journey, their timeline is custom to them. So we don't have a set standard customer journey because we can do so much with our product and everybody has different priorities and different use cases. You do not need to start with one module to have success with another. So that's where that timeline slide came into play, where everyone has their own customized customer journey that goes through that first year. And then after that, that will be an evolution of where do we set up enterprise or strategic or customer journeys based off of what we've learned. So that kind of leads into that other question of segmenting. That may be where we go with that. But everyone has their own customer journey. There isn't a static one customer journey for SlapFive.
All right, very good. Next question up. Who are the key stakeholders or business units involved in the re-onboarding process?
So within the customer, it's always going back to the executive sponsor, because that re-onboarding process, it depends on what triggered it. Was there a change of champion? Was there new goals, new leadership, new team that came into play? If any of those, the executive sponsor of our customer is typically the one driving the need for that. If it is just part of their timeline and it's their next work stream activation, during that backstage pass executive business review, if the executive is not able to join, we're always sharing back the info to be like, okay, this is what we've achieved, and this is our next step, and this is our next activation. So we always include the executive sponsor and hope they join. We know that isn't always realistic, but making sure that they're involved and have full scope and visibility to the customer journey and to the timeline, and why we're starting a new onboard, a new activation.
So Dana, I've got a couple questions that I've also written down. So if anyone else still on the call has more questions, drop them in the Q&A. If not, I'm going to take this time to ask them my own selfishly. Talk to me about how you enabled the sales team to talk about this, right? So now as they're selling deals, obviously this onboarding is usually a talk track and what implementation will look like for many prospects. How did you enable them, and how comfortable are they talking about this and articulating what the journey will look like?
Yes, great call. A great question. So I have made it that a process that we come in to do a CS overview in pre-sales. So there's a slide deck that kind of talks through, we're going to identify what your work streams are, because yes, sales is selling everything. They're selling the whole kit and caboodle. But they also, it was an identifier in our sales process where sales would get dragged on, or we potentially maybe lost some sales because customers got overwhelmed with, oh my God, I can do all of this. So this really level sets and actually helps in the pre-sales motion. It helps close because it lets them see, we're going to project this, we're going to bucket these into these work streams for you. So I either go on to most calls and introduce this to the customers when they're at kind of that end buying stage, when we're in pricing review calls, usually contracts have been sent. And sales has a couple of these slides to leverage and showcase how we activate. We work in work streams to meet your goals on that timeline. So they've liked it, they've welcomed it, which has been great.
Great. Okay, I'm going to ask another question because we still have time and nobody else has cut the line with their own. So another question that I would have is, I get this a lot from folks anytime we deploy new programs. Obviously, introducing new customers to a new framework is easy. They don't have anything to compare it to. How have you been deploying this into your install base, and how have they felt going through the changes of this new re-onboarding process?
Great question again. And that has been like the goal of this quarter. We are in that kind of flow right now of finishing that and finalizing that. And the way that we are doing that is we have introduced that strategy roadmap session, which was not something we had in place 6 months ago. So going back and saying we've taken away the traditional executive business review, but now we want to do a strategy roadmap. We kind of tailor it as an assessment as well with the client to understand what you're doing with SlapFive, what opportunities you have, and where you can go. So we offer that to them, and it's just an hour. We call it an hour power hour session as their commitment, and then that is able to introduce, okay, we're ready to activate. And this has helped kind of some of those status quo stagnant accounts that have just been coasting to reinvigorate some of them. And we're doing a couple reactivation work streams, re-onboarding right now with some of them, which is exciting. So it's working.
That's great. Okay, we've got another question here from our attendees. So, how do you control the amount of onboarding your team does? So it does not translate into long onboarding, but most importantly, it's not dragging your onboarding team for more and more sessions that may not necessarily be part of your recent plan and staffing estimates.
Well, hi, Diana. I see that's from you. So that is the whole mode and why we broke it up into the specific work streams with the targeted beginning end date and what task needs to be done for that. And it does help when we have each one of these strategy roadmaps done for new clients, and now we're almost done with having it with our full install base. We're able to now scope out, okay, if any of these are upsells, we're tracking them as upsells, so we know those will be activations. If any of them are existing features that customers want to leverage, we know those are going to be new work streams and new onboarding. So we have a way now that we can measure and we can kind of plan in that sense, because every client is getting it net new what we're doing for the next year, with some room to wiggle, and then our install base. So we've been able to scope that out, but having it in, having the implementation onboarding team just focus on these activations and work streams and separating them from the standard customer success role of day-to-day check-ins is the only way that this is be able to scale, to bifurcate the roles between implementation onboarding and customer success. Without that, it would have been very difficult to manage time and over meetings. I forget what your last phrase was on there, Diana, but hopefully that answered.
Dana, quick question on that one. So do you have a customer who's working with their CSM and an onboarding manager in parallel at
Yes.
all times?
So how we are structuring it is, new client has an implementation onboard manager, happens to be myself, that will get them through that onboarding implementation to that set go live launch date. Then they're in that, which is between that 30 to 60 day goal. Then they're introduced with their CSM, has their day-to-day check-ins, and then when we're ready, we say, okay, next quarter, or when they're ready. It doesn't always happen like the day of the next quarter. We'll get ready to activate that new work stream. So at that point, they will work in tandem with both. For our existing install base, customer base, we're in that transition period of having those existing customers that was mainly my book of business move over, and go to a standard strategic CSM, which then will introduce me to have some implementations and activations. So it's in flux right now, but it's going to be exciting when it's happening, because it's growth, and we've laid it out to our customers as it's a growth plan for us to help support them more strategically. So that was all rolled out to our customer base a couple days ago, and great rave reviews of it. So
How exciting. All right, we do have a couple more questions. Let's see how many we can get to. In the mixture of continuous onboarding, natural upselling opportunity, how do you and in your experience, manage the customer's intake? The overwhelming effect has been cited as possible concern of going too hard. How have you learned to balance it?
so I'm just reading it again.
Mm-hmm.
So the overwhelming piece, again, comes back to why we split it up into kind of the consumable work streams and project plans. So I had a huge Google sheet of like, I still leverage it for some like data mapping, but we had a whole Google sheet that scrolled down and down and down and had all these tasks, and we would go in and kick off, and people would be like, oh my God, I have to do all of this in 30 days. So we've taken that long list and broke it up into these 4 different templates. So having in the way that it's helped is having set milestones, and then under those milestones, having what are those various tasks that you need to do. And that takes away, I think, that overwhelming effect, because it isn't too much, and you're breaking down the timeline. It's not all due in one day. We break it out by, you have these 5 tasks in a week, and how long it should take them. Once you know that, adding the time in, that has helped a lot versus throwing the whole capability of your product and tool at someone to do all at once. Yes, would be overwhelming. So you need to peel it back and have just the most important tasks and milestones that they need to achieve, and that has helped us have that balance.
Very good. So hopefully we answered that. Because we're getting close, I don't know, Dana, let's see if we can squeeze one more in and if we can get it done in a minute. Do
Sure.
you rely on high touch, ongoing customer executive sponsored check-ins, or do you also use something for sentiment analysis, like emails, calls for leading indicators?
So great question. So yes, we rely on kind of all of the above. We rely on high touch. The strategy roadmap, which is led by someone on my team, Elizabeth, will be doing the executive kind of sponsor check-ins with these Backstage Pass quarterly reviews that we've rebranded. So we are high touch. We are doing executive sponsor check-ins and reviewing, and leveraging. We will be leveraging better with Gong, of call recorder, and having the sentiment analysis from that sense, to have those indicators. So that is in flux of what we'll be leveraging there. So more to come So yes to everything there.
All right, very good. Well, Dana, perfect on timing. That brings us to the end of our session today. So before we wrap, Dana, I do want to just thank you so much for sharing your experience and your expertise with our community. Thank you so much. I know I took away a ton of very interesting stuff. It's also really cool to hear how our customers are using our products. So thank you so much for sharing all of that with our community today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right.
Thanks,
And thank
everyone.
you so much for everyone who is still with us. But thank you all so much for taking the time out of your busy days. It's not lost on us that, this is a gift. You're giving us an hour of your day. That is a lot. And so we appreciate you being here with us. We will have another webinar next week. Stay tuned in your email for what the topic and speaker is on that. And we've got a couple others planned coming up. If you haven't yet registered for CS100, we would love to have you and host you there on the mountain this year at Sundance. So please go check out the event before the pricing goes up. Otherwise, we will see you back here hopefully next week, and have a great rest of your week. So Dana, thank you again so much.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye, Kristi.